thought about what beauty is? Beauty is biology, and the human desire for beauty is genetically programmed. Beauty is a social currency that rewards the lucky beholder. Beauty is not one size fits all. Hi, I'm Dr. Monica Bonakdar. I'm an aesthetic medicine specialist practicing in Newport Beach, California. I'm the creator of Monbon Clinical Skincare and Amplify Filler Technique. You are listening to Beauty Heroes Podcast, where I chat candidly with trailblazing beauty leaders, examining, questioning, and challenging everything you thought you knew about beauty and the current beauty standards. My goal is to make beauty more inclusive and accessible to all aesthetically oriented men and women. All right, let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're talking to David Moatazedi. He is the CEO and president of Evolus, which is an exciting new aesthetic company with a new FDA-approved product, muscle relaxer called Jeuveau, or you may have heard about it, #NewTalk. David, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be on the podcast. I appreciate you including me.
Let's first talk a bit about you and then about Evolus and Jeuveau. You have been active in the aesthetic industry all your life almost. Can you tell us a bit about your professional history and how you got involved?
Yeah, look, I've been in healthcare for just over 20 years. As you said, the majority of that time has been in aesthetics. I spent a good portion of my career working for a company named Allergan, working on major brands like Botox and Juvederm in the US, and moved over to start a company by the name of Evolus last year. The company did an IPO in February of 2018. And just a year after that IPO, we received FDA approval, and that was earlier this year. We have the product now out on the market, and we're very excited to get it into consumers' hands. And we've clearly done that in the short number of months we've been out there.
That's fantastic. So I think about Evolus as the Apple Inc. of the beauty industry. It's here to disrupt the status quo. Tell me about Evolus and what makes it different than other companies in this space.
Sure. Well, it really is a beauty company at its core, and that's how we designed it. The aesthetic industry has been formed largely by pharmaceutical companies that have discovered innovations that had applications in medical aesthetics. And so as a result of their heritage, a lot of those medical aesthetic companies, they continue to run like pharmaceutical companies with a division in this space. We took a different lens to Evolus. We decided that we can focus on this category of aesthetics and operate more like a beauty company. And so we are held to the same regulations and standards that any pharmaceutical company would be as it relates to the FDA, regulatory, and compliance. But outside of that, internally, we have a very different lens. As a matter of fact, a large number of our employees on the marketing and our digital team have no experience in healthcare. What we wanted to do was bring beauty to this category and operate more like a beauty company. I think consumers and yourself can relate to this because 15 years ago, when I started in aesthetics, I would walk into a medical practice and it would look like a sterile facility. It wouldn't look very different from a cardiologist's office or an OB's office. Today, you walk into a medical aesthetics office and it looks like a medical spa environment. And a lot of times it could be the same doctor that would have been doing the treatments before. This market has evolved, and we believe that as a company, we can evolve with it. And that's why Evolus is focused on just being a beauty company in this category.
That's fantastic. So let's talk about Jeuveau. Tell us what it is for those who have no idea.
We are the newest neurotoxin approved by the FDA. There hasn't been one approved in almost a decade until we arrived. The heritage of this company is great. We started with what we believe is the gold standard molecule. It's 900 kilodaltons, which doesn't mean a whole lot to the average consumer, but you should know that 900 kilodaltons is a molecule size of the market leader, which is Botox. We started with that, but then what we did was we created a new manufacturing process in order to create Jeuveau. And that manufacturing process, we call it the Hi-Pure technology, which is our trademark manufacturing process, which produces our product, Jeuveau. Now, this product, years ago, when we started the trials, we conducted head-to-head trials against the market leader just to prove how effective Jeuveau was relative to that product. In addition to our US trials, over 2,100 patients were studied with this product around the world. And we now have
2,100 patients. Wow.
That's right. We now have approval, not just in the United States, but in Canada. And earlier this week, we received approval in Europe as well. So we are actively commercializing around the world with what we believe is a very innovative new product through our high-pure technology.
Will it be named the same, Jeuveau, in Canada and Europe?
Great question. The name Jeuveau, we wanted to keep it exclusive to the US market. We're going to do a number of things differently here in the US because we believe that the consumer who gets treated here is more discerning than in other parts of the world, and we want it to be applicable to that group. We brand named this product Nuceiva in Canada and in Europe, and that'll be the name that they launch with in those markets. In Canada, we're launching this quarter, and in Europe, we'll launch in 2020.
Wow, that's fantastic. So let's talk about what this does. Muscle relaxers have been used for relaxing the expressions, facial expressions of the face that we want to disguise. We're no longer freezing faces, but reshaping faces. So how long does it take for Jeuveau to take effect after being injected?
So our data in the US trials followed patients out to the week 1 for the effect, and our results that we have in our label out to day 30. Everyone has their own experience. So I'd be curious actually to ask you the question, since you've tried Jeuveau, more of a real world experience. What are you hearing?
It's very interesting, David. I hopped on board as soon as the product was available to us commercially. And so that was back in June of 2019. And the very first thing that we started hearing, especially with the people that I see all the time, like my staff and family, some of them said that it takes effect faster than what they're used to, which up to now, I was exclusively using Botox Cosmetic. And so that was our first experience. It's now been, coming to the 4th month. And I have to tell you, I haven't had one single phone call about someone having a problem with Jeuveau. And we're seeing those original patients again now who chose to try the new toxin, and they're delighted. They want to continue with it. So all of us doctors are going to have more experience as time goes by, but that's my little bit of experience so far.
That's great to hear. And as you know, when we launched Jeuveau in the US, we launched it around the country with a program called the JET program. And
yes,
consumers around the country have enrolled in our patient survey. We have over 25,000 consumers that have done so. And we're now getting results back like you out to month 4. And the satisfaction that we're seeing in these patients, many of them who've used neurotoxins prior, and a large number that are naive or new to the neurotoxin market, the results are reflective of what we observed in our clinical trial as well. So I'm glad to hear that that's what you're seeing. It's exactly what we're observing as well.
How long was the JET program active for?
So we enrolled for about 90 days. And in those 90 days, over 5,000 doctors and accounts around the country started to use Jeuveau. And so with that, we asked that at a minimum of 5 patients get enrolled in the JET program. And now we've seen over 25,000 patients in our survey data. So as you mentioned earlier, 2,100 patients is meaningful for a clinical program around the world with Jeuveau. And that's what we did in order to bring this product to market, both in the US and Europe. But this JET survey is more reflective of the real world environment, which is equally important because it's all about your experience with the products and what you hear back from patients. It's great to see, though, that what the FDA wanted to see in the clinical trials is reflective of what patients are observing in the real world.
Well, that's fantastic. So let's talk about our aesthetic consumers and beauty. You mentioned that 5,000 physicians have already started using Jeuveau, and gosh, how many injectors are there in the US? Do you have a round number?
Well, we've heard there are over 30,000 injectors in the US. That being said, like every market, you apply a simple 80-20 rule to it. And that 80-20 simply says 80% of the procedures come from 20% of the professionals in any category. So thinking about it from that lens, you'd say about 6,000 injectors around the country are doing over 80% of the volume. And that's sort of the rule by which we think about this business.
So your injector penetration in the first 6 months after your FDA approval, that's very impressive. Okay, the aesthetic consumer. You've been in the aesthetic market forever, and you already started mentioning some of the changes in the physicians' offices. What's changed, David, in the consumer? Who are they? What age group are they? What do they want?
Well, I think the whole beauty category is going through this transformation of thinking about the consumer through two different lenses. There was the baby boomer generation, which really drove this rise in aesthetic procedures. They were sort of the lead, if you will, into this category. They weathered through, are these things safe? Should I do them? Will I look natural? And that's been the last 15 or 20 years. This next generation that Evolus is focused around, the millennial segment, has a very different psychology. Not only today do they represent about a third of the users in this market, but over the next 5 years, they're going to represent over 50%. And that millennial, she grew up with maybe a parent who was doing injectable procedures, and with social media, you're starting to see aesthetics is becoming more normalized. And this younger generation doesn't have the same concerns that the baby boomer population did. And if anything, they really have an affinity to experiences, which include things like beauty treatments. And we're seeing that they're entering this market at a younger age than their predecessors did, and they're more willing to do these procedures. And so the technologies like Jeuveau, they're really designed around that mindset. But what we also find that's really fascinating is, I call it the millennial mindset. It's not just about that younger demographic. I'm not a millennial, but I share a millennial mindset, which is we might not be of the age group, but we believe in innovation. We believe that brands could communicate differently to us, and we embrace new technologies like millennials do. And I believe that millennial mindset transcends that age group. And there are many baby boomers that have that millennial mindset. This brand is positioned around that. You talked about the energy, the youthfulness of the brand, and the way we came to market focused on the beauty industry. What consumer wouldn't want to be a part of that with a high quality product? And we're really about creating an experience in aesthetics. You know, when we first introduced Jet into your practice, little things like coral gloves that you could use in the procedure room, or butterfly Evolus, and that butterfly reflects the metamorphoses of this industry, which happens to be our logo for the company. These little details that we spend a significant amount of time on to our social media presence are all about creating a new brand with a completely different feeling from maybe some of the other brands that are all great as well, but this is just different.
Yeah, what I've noticed is that other companies use very model-esque looking models on their brochures and ads, and that alienates the average Jane Doe. And your brand really speaks to me and my podcast, because the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to include everyone in this beauty craze and not to have it be exclusive and only targeted towards those that look like the current stars on social media. So I'm wondering, how did you choose your models? I love are they commercials or are they just brand recognition videos that you've put together?
All very good questions. Look, I'd start by saying, whether it's this podcast we're on today or your patients that come to you that have their own social following, I think what you're seeing is the transformation of how brands and communities are built and communicated with. Everyone now has a voice as a result of the digitization of our environment. And that voice is unique, and everyone thinks about it in terms of their own individuality. 10, 15 years ago, if you're going to launch a brand, you would launch the brand through one lens, and you'd push that through television and through print, and everyone would consume it the way that the manufacturer described it. Evolus is very different. This is all about individuality, and it's a brand that's reflective of today's era. It's a modern day brand that, as you said, the models are reflective of that. They're very diverse. We believe in diversity. Our employee base is diverse in their backgrounds. Many don't have aesthetic experience, all the way through to a number of individuals like myself who've been in aesthetics for a large part of their career. The ethnic diversity that we have in our models. And like you said, it's not about just picking a certain status quo or representative of the user base. That's where the market is today. We believe that that diversity is representative of where the market's going tomorrow, which is where this company is really focused. And I'm glad to hear you say that you see that reflected in our materials and all the assets we push out now. We're really pushing it initially through you. We believe that when you launch a product in the space, it has to start with the trained injector getting comfortable with the product, using it, getting the feedback, and the social media content that we push primarily goes through the practice. Next year, we're going to expand that and start targeting more actively the consumer. We're already piloting things around the country, but we'll do that on a much larger scale next year as our injector base gets more comfort in the product and how it performs.
That's fantastic. I feel like we've gone from rejuvenation with the baby boomers where the aging had happened and they just wanted to stop that acceleration of aging to now we're in a state of prejuvenation where the millennials have like almost secretly promised themselves that they're not going to look like mom and grandma, and they're doing things to look better and stay younger. Is that where the whole industry is going, or is that my skewed view of Newport Beach, California?
No, that's exactly the mindset. And I love how you said that, the prejuvenation versus rejuvenation. I think that's a very insightful comment. And it is reflective of mindsets evolve in every category. The consumer starts to think about these products and these procedures differently over time. And that could be more positive, where they become more positively inclined and they maybe use them earlier, to negative. And fortunately, as you know, and you've treated patients for many years, these products have so much value in the patient's eyes beyond the functional benefit that these products are FDA approved for. As a manufacturer, I can't speak to those. But for you and your peers who've seen patients come to them for 10 or 15 years, you're starting to provide even more color around the value that these products provide. And I do believe that these, number one, they're high quality products, incredibly safe in this category. And they've had a residence time now of over 20 years that gives you and the consumer a lot of confidence that they can continue to use them over time. And that is how you build markets. It's not a short-term idea, but it's a long-term one. And as you said, these younger consumers are very positively inclined because of that rich history.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think of myself as an injector. I think of myself as the purveyor of beauty, and I'm creating self-confidence and happiness. And I think when you say there are things that you can't speak about, are you referring to like the actual psyche of the aesthetically oriented individual and why they're doing these treatments?
And also how it affects them after they do the treatment. You also hear a lot about consumers that think about this when you mention prejuvenation is, do these products, perhaps if I start using them earlier, how will I look different as I get older? Manufacturers can't make any claims around that, but you yourself have a lot of experience there as well. And so those are some of the things that I was thinking about when I made that comment.
Do you have any idea how many aesthetically oriented individuals there are in the U.S.?
Yeah, we just conducted a large body of work amongst consumers in the U.S. And we believe, number one, that the target consumer is a female. They represent 90% of the market today.
What is going on with the men? They're lagging again.
They are. Men are always a step behind. As a matter of fact, I have a personal view on it as a male, which is a lot of times she's the one that drives him to come in and get treated. We're not proactive about our medical care, and that's well captured across specialties. It's not unique to aesthetics. But women will continue to be the driving force in aesthetics. And when you filter for those with the household income, you have over 30 million women that are interested in getting treated what's fascinating is only several million are in the market today. So 9 out of 10 consumers that are interested in getting treated in the next 2 years and have the disposable income are not in your offices today. And that is where the opportunity sits. We believe that millennial demographic is the tipping point to driving that penetration even further.
So bottom line, you and I are going to have job security for years to come. But the sad thing is that, I'll just be like watching TV or walking around the mall, and I'll look at someone and immediately my mind goes through making a treatment plan of how I can enhance their beauty. But it's somewhat of a difficult conversation unless it is initiated by the consumer. I mean, I can't walk up to someone in a party and say, hey, my name is, you don't know me, and I think that you should come see me and do these treatments. So it's difficult to start talking about it. What are you going to be doing to make that conversation easier for the consumer?
We're injecting a lot of fun into it. When we launched Jeuveau, we launched with confetti type of events.
I've been part of that confetti conspiracy.
It doesn't need to be that serious. That's just the reality of it. These are beauty treatments in the end. Yes, they're done as medical procedures, so we have to ensure the integrity of that is intact.
Absolutely.
That being said, this is all about her and wanting to do something that's going to make her feel better about the procedure. And so rather than, as the digital team tells me, why don't we just have humans speak when we describe these products and describe the procedure? And so we try to do that. We try to inject a lot of fun into this procedure and make it as lighthearted as it is. And that really is the Evolus and the Jeuveau brand, is to bring that to the market. And hopefully consumers feel that energy, because I can tell you we do in-house. And if you follow us on our handles for Evolus, you'd find that it's quite a playful company, because we think there's just a completely different approach you can bring in this category.
Well, tell us about where our listeners and the consumer can find you on social media.
Yeah, sure. So you could follow us on Insta or Facebook. Just look up Jeuveau, 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 or the company at Evolus, EVOLUS. And either way, you'll get a really good flavor for the company, how we're building this out. And there's a lot of exciting things that we roll out through our handles as well for consumers. And you'll see more of that next year. So I think I'd encourage your consumers to do so. And we happen to be a local company. We're based here in Newport Beach. We're right next to Fashion Island.
So with your busy schedule and my busy schedule, we're actually doing this remote, but I really want to come through and see your corporate office. I'm wondering if you have, what do you call a butterfly house? Is that a arboretum, or what is the right name for a nest of butterflies? And do you have one at your corporate office?
Well, so actually, it's funny you said that. This Friday, we're moving out of our space for a 90-day renovation. And I don't want to let the secrets out of what we're going to have when we come back in. But I can tell you that between the design team and our leadership group, we've spent a lot of time thinking about how we curate the experience when you come in, including an injection room for our staff. And so we'd love to have you come in when that renovation's complete and get a tour and get the opportunity to post we'll have a number of postable environments here in our new space.
Wow. Okay. So invitation accepted. I am coming to see the new office. In fact, I'm moving into a new office in about 3 months. So I'll invite you to my grand opening. We'll just party and forget about work altogether. No, this isn't work for me. This is like lots and lots of fun. And I get a feeling that you have a lot of passion for what you do and this product. So I want to know, what are you planning? So you've brought this Jeuveau to US. It's now in Canada. You got your approval for Europe. What's next?
Well, we aspire to be a company long-term in this aesthetic space. And with neurotoxins, we're in the largest market today. It's the number one procedure that's conducted here in the US. And we have aspirations to bring new products to the market as well. We're looking at early stage technologies all the way through to commercial stage. And given we're a public company, we can't provide too much color around what that next asset will be, other than to say we have a leadership team that has extensive experience developing drugs and devices. And we're looking forward to building out our portfolio over the long term. This is not a company that was designed for the next 12 or 24 months. We're here to create a completely different experience, and that experience will unveil itself over many chapters over the years to come. And I'm just really excited about that. And that is what really drew me to Evolus, was the opportunity to create something different, something that'll unfold over time.
Well, I'm just as excited to hang tight and wait and see what happens. This is an amazing industry. And if I don't go to like 3 big shows a year, I feel like I've missed out because it's so fast moving and there's always something new. Not everything is a good thing. There are fads that come and go. There are Me Too products that come and go, but once in a while, and it had been 10 years, folks, that we didn't have a new muscle relaxer become FDA approved in the US. Once in a while, an amazing product and an amazing company comes along and really elevates the whole entire industry and elevates the standards that everyone should be aspiring to. And I really congratulate you, David, for having done that with Jeuveau and with Evolus. So I look forward to what you will do for the industry in the future. And folks, if you have not tried Jeuveau, you owe it to yourself to give it a try. And you don't necessarily want to be doing everything just like yesterday, because that's like the first sign of aging out. What would you say, David?
I like that.
53 and deathly afraid of aging out. That's me.
That's great. Well, look, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it on behalf of all employees here at Evolus. And for any of your patients or consumers who decide to try Jeuveau or Evolus, we welcome any feedback that you have, and we appreciate you giving us a shot.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.